"You're late again, Jen," Sarah called out, not bothering to hide the annoyance in her voice. "Sorry, the traffic was a nightmare," Jen replied, her heels clicking against the cold office floor as she hurried to her desk. Sarah raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. She knew Jen had been out with Mark the night before, and she had always had a suspicion that their friendship was more than just professional. But she had never seen Mark leave Jen's apartment, not once. The office was bustling with the usual Monday chaos, but Jen's arrival had brought a certain electricity to the air. Laura, who sat in the cubicle next to Sarah, shot her a knowing look. Laura had been there last Friday when Mark had invited Jen to a dance bar, and she had seen the way Jen's eyes had lit up. Laura had whispered to Sarah later, "I think they're an item." Sarah couldn't ignore the sudden tightness in her chest. Jen was her best friend and Mark was just Mark. He was charming, sure, but he had a reputation around the office, and it wasn't just for his dance moves. Laura's comment had planted a seed of doubt in her mind, and it had been growing all weekend. As Jen sat down, she couldn't help but notice the stolen glances from their male colleagues. She had always been aware of the attention she drew, but today it felt different. It was like they knew something she didn't. She tried to shake off the feeling, focusing instead on the mountain of paperwork that had piled up over the weekend. Summary (1). Jen arrives late at work, prompting Sarah's annoyance. Sarah suspects Jen's relationship with Mark may be romantic due to Jen's behavior and Laura's comment about seeing them at a dance bar. Laura believes they are a couple, which causes Sarah distress as Mark is known for his office flings. Jen feels self-conscious about the male colleague's attention, which seems more intense than usual. But the whispers grew louder, the glances more frequent. And when Mark sauntered in, casually tossing a wink in Jen's direction, Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. She had never seen him so possessive. The tension in the office was palpable, like the thick heat before a storm. Laura leaned over, her voice low. "I heard they were pretty hot and heavy at the bar last night." Sarah's eyes snapped up, meeting Laura's mischievous gaze. "What do you mean?" "Just what I said," Laura shrugged, her eyes flicking to Mark and Jen, who were laughing together at the coffee machine. They were all over each other. Sarah felt her cheeks burn. She had never admitted it, not even to herself, but she had always had feelings for Jen. They had been friends for so long, and she had always hoped that one day. But now, watching them together, she knew it was more than just friendship. And the jealousy that surged through her was like nothing she had ever felt before. The day dragged on, the minutes feeling like hours as Sarah watched Jen and Mark's flirtatious exchanges. She tried to bury herself in work, but the whispers and giggles kept pulling her focus back to them. Her heart ached, and she couldn't ignore the sour taste in her mouth. As the clock ticked closer to 5, Jen's phone buzzed on her desk. She picked it up, a secretive smile playing on her lips as she read the message. Without looking up, she said, "I've got to run. I forgot I have a thing." Summary (1). Mark enters the office, winking at Jen, confirming Sarah's suspicion. Laura fuels the fire by sharing that they were intimate at the bar, causing Sarah to realize her romantic feelings for Jen and feel intense jealousy. The day is tense, with Sarah unable to focus on work due to their interactions. Jen leaves early with an excuse, hinting at a rendezvous. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "A thing?" Jen's smile grew. "Yeah, a thing." The room felt too small, too suffocating. Sarah needed air. She grabbed her jacket and left, not bothering to tell anyone she was going. She walked aimlessly, her thoughts a whirlwind of anger and pain. The park was her refuge, a place she came to think, to breathe. She found a bench and sat down, watching the leaves dance in the early evening breeze. Her mind raced with images of Jen and Mark, their bodies pressed together on the dance floor, their laughter echoing in the bar. A figure approached, casting a shadow over her. She looked up to see Jen, her cheeks flushed and her hair slightly disheveled. "Hey, you okay?" Jen asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. "I'm fine," Sarah forced a smile. "Just needed some fresh air." Jen sat down next to her, their thighs brushing together. "You've been acting weird all day." Sarah took a deep breath. "It's just, I heard you guys had a good time last night."
Jen's eyes searched hers.
"Is that what this is about?" Sarah looked away, unable to hold her gaze. "I don't know. I don't know what's happening here." Jen leaned closer, her hand gently taking Sarah's. "What do you mean?" Sarah swallowed hard. I thought we had something special." Jen's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, sending shivers up her arm. "We do," she whispered. "We've always had something special." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "But Mark," Jen sighed, her eyes dropping to their intertwined fingers. "It's complicated." Sarah felt a spark of anger flare within her. "Is it because he's a man?" Jen looked up, her eyes wide. "What? No, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Sarah demanded, her voice rising. Jen took a moment, her thumb stopping its soothing movement. "I'm just confused." "Confused," Sarah repeated, pulling her hand away. "You're confusing me." Jen's eyes searched hers, and for a moment, it felt like the whole world stopped. Then she leaned in, her breath warm against Sarah's cheek. "I think maybe we need to talk. Alone." They went back to Jen's apartment, the tension between them thick enough to cut with a knife. The silence in the elevator was deafening. Once inside, Jen took Sarah's hand again, leading her to the couch. They sat down, the space between them seeming to shrink with every second that passed. "I don't know what you're expecting me to say," Jen began, her voice shaky. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady her own voice. "I just want you to be honest with me." Jen looked down, playing with the hem of her shirt. "I've had feelings for you for a long time, Sarah, but I didn't know how to tell you." Sarah's heart raced. "But Mark," Jen took her chin, forcing her to look up. "Is just a distraction, a way to keep my mind off this." Their eyes met, and the air crackled with unspoken words. Then, as if unable to resist any longer, Jen leaned in and kissed her, soft and tentative at first, but growing in intensity. Sarah's arms wrapped around her, pulling her closer, their bodies melding together as the kiss deepened. It was a kiss that spoke of years of longing, of hidden desires finally coming to the surface. When they finally broke apart, panting and dizzy, Sarah felt a new emotion stir within her. "Hope. Does this mean?" She began, but Jen silenced her with another kiss, more urgent this time. "Yes," Jen murmured against her lips. "This means everything." The night was a whirlwind of passion and confessions, of exploring each other's bodies as if for the first time. The jealousy and anger from earlier had melted away, replaced by a fiery need that neither could ignore. They danced around the living room, their bodies entwined, the music playing softly in the background. As they collapsed onto the bed, the heat of their skin mingling together, Sarah realized that this was where she was meant to be, with Jen. And as they lay there, their hearts pounding in sync, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The next few weeks were a blur of secret glances and stolen kisses at work, of whispered confessions and passionate nights. They tried to keep their newfound relationship hidden from their colleagues, but the chemistry between them was palpable. Laura noticed, her eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and something else, something that made Sarah's stomach flip. One night, as they were leaving the office, Mark stepped out of the shadows, his expression dark. "So it's true," he spat, his eyes darting between Sarah and Jen. "You're both a pair of FN dykes." Jen's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, Laura stepped forward. "That's enough, Mark," she said firmly. "Leave them alone." The tension grew in the air, like a storm cloud about to break. Mark sneered. "Or what? You're going to tell everyone about your little office romance?" Sarah felt the rage boil within her, but Jen's hand on her arm kept her grounded. "It's not like that," Jen said, her voice calm and steady. "It's between me and Sarah." Mark laughed, a harsh, cruel sound. "You think you're so special," he sneered at Sarah. "But you're just another notch on her bedpost." With a snarl, Laura stepped up, her fists clenched. "Shut up, Mark," she hissed. "You have no idea what you're talking about." But Mark wasn't done. He took a step closer to Jen, his face twisted in a sneer. "And you playing both sides? How long before you get bored and move on?" That was the final straw. Jen pushed past Laura, her eyes flashing with fury. "Get out of here," she said through gritted teeth. "You don't get to talk about us like that." Mark just smirked, turning to leave. But as he did, he threw one last parting shot over his shoulder. "You're going to regret this, Jen. You're going to regret it more than you know." The words hung in the air, a chilling promise. As the door slammed shut behind him, Jen's shoulders sagged. Laura wrapped an arm around her, whispering soothing words into her ear. But Sarah could see the doubt in Jen's eyes. The seeds of fear had been planted, and she knew that the fight for their love was only just beginning. In the days that followed, the whispers grew louder, the glances more pointed. It was as if everyone in the office knew their secret, and they were just waiting for the moment to pounce. Laura had become their silent protector, glaring at anyone who dared to say something out of line. But it was clear that Mark had started a fire that wouldn't be easily extinguished. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Sarah suggested they go out to the dance bar again, just the two of them. Jen's eyes lit up at the idea, and they eagerly agreed to let loose and forget about the office drama. They danced, their bodies moving in perfect harmony, lost in the music and each other. But the peace was short-lived. As they left the bar, hand in hand, they stumbled upon a heated argument in the alley. Two figures were locked in a struggle, and as they approached, Sarah realized with a sinking feeling that one of them was Mark. Jen gasped, pulling her closer. "We have to help," she said, her voice trembling. But before they could move, a third figure emerged from the shadows, a knife glinting in the moonlight. Their hearts pounding, they watched in horror as the fight escalated, the stakes becoming all too clear. The sound of metal on metal rang out, and suddenly Mark was on the ground, a crimson stain spreading across his shirt. The attacker fled, leaving them to their shock and fear. Kneeling beside him, Jen's voice was barely a whisper. "Mark," she said, her hand trembling as she touched his cheek, but he didn't respond. His eyes were open but unseeing, and in that moment, Sarah knew that their lives had changed forever. The taste of their kisses from earlier in the night had turned to ash in her mouth. The sirens grew louder, a cacophony of panic and despair. As the paramedics arrived, pushing them aside, Jen's eyes searched hers, a silent plea for understanding. But all Sarah could think was, "What have we done?" The love that had once felt so pure and right now seemed to be drenched in the shadow of violence and loss. The following days were a blur of police questioning and funerals. The office was a minefield of accusations and suspicion. Laura, who had been so supportive, now looked at them with a mix of fear and anger. "You brought this on us," she hissed, her eyes filled with accusation. Sarah knew she was right. They had crossed a line, let their emotions dictate their actions. And now Mark was gone, and their relationship was in tatters. The whispers had become a roar, and she could feel the eyes of their colleagues on them, judging, pitying. But amidst the chaos, their love had only grown stronger. In the quiet moments when they were alone, they clung to each other, finding solace in the warmth of their embrace. They had each other, and that was all that mattered. One night, as they lay in bed, Jen took her hand, her voice thick with emotion. "We can't keep hiding," she said. "We have to tell them." Sarah nodded, her heart racing. "I know." The next morning, they marched into the office hand in hand. The room fell silent as they approached their desks. The tension was unbearable, but they didn't falter. They had nothing to be ashamed of. They were in love, and they were going to fight for it no matter the cost. Their announcement was met with a mix of shock and disbelief, but they stood firm, their eyes only for each other. They knew they had a long road ahead, filled with challenges and potential heartache. But they also knew that together they could face anything. And so, in the wake of Mark's tragic death, their love grew stronger, a beacon of light in the dark. The whispers faded, replaced by a newfound respect. They had survived the storm, and now they were ready to build a life together. But the shadow of that night in the alley would always linger, a stark reminder of the price of their love. Laura, once their ally, had become distant, her gaze haunted by the memory of what had been lost. The office dynamics had shifted, leaving them isolated amidst the whispers that grew quieter, but never disappeared entirely. The weeks turned into months, and Sarah and Jen grew closer, their bond unshakable despite the turmoil around them. They found comfort in the sanctity of Jen's apartment, the walls a silent testament to their love. It was there, in the safety of their sanctuary, that they made plans to leave the company, to start anew where their relationship wouldn't be a constant battleground. One evening, as they packed Jen's office, Laura appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry," she choked out, clutching a half-empty bottle of whiskey. "I never meant for this to happen." Sarah's anger flared, but Jen stepped forward, her voice gentle. "We know, Laura. It's not your fault." They sat together, the air thick with unspoken words and regrets. Laura took a deep, shaky breath. "I saw who did it," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't." The revelation hit them like a punch to the gut. Sarah's hand tightened around Jen's, the room spinning. Laura had carried this burden alone, a silent guardian of their love. The weight of her confession settled heavily between them, a stark reminder of the secrets and lies that had woven themselves into their lives. They left the office that night with a newfound sense of urgency. The whispers had turned into a roar, and the walls felt like they were closing in. Laura had promised to keep their secret, but the fear remained, a constant echo in the back of their minds. As they stepped out into the cool night air, holding each other tightly, Jen turned to Sarah. "We need to get out of here," she murmured. "We need to leave this all behind." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We'll start fresh," she said, her voice steady. "We'll show them that love can conquer anything." And so, with their hearts heavy but hopeful, they began their new chapter, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held. The whispers and shadows of the past would always be a part of them, but they had each other. and that was all they needed to conquer the world. Their first night in their new home was filled with a bittersweet mix of excitement and fear. They had left behind the toxic office environment, but the memory of Mark's death was a constant reminder of the price they had paid for their happiness. They held each other close, whispering sweet nothings into the darkness, trying to banish the ghosts of doubt that still lingered. The days grew into weeks and the weeks into months. They found new jobs in a small firm where no one knew their history, where they could be open about their love without fear of judgment. They built a life together, filled with quiet moments of joy and passionate nights that erased the pain of their past. But as the seasons changed, so too did the whispers. They had hoped that leaving would silence the voices, but they soon realized that gossip had a life of its own. It followed them like a specter, a constant reminder that their love was not universally accepted. Laura had moved away, unable to bear the weight of her secret, and the distance between them grew, a gaping hole in their hearts. One day, as they were walking through the public park, hand in hand, they were approached by a group of men, their faces twisted with malice. The same malice they had seen in Mark's attacker. The fear was palpable, but they stood tall, refusing to cower in the face of hate. The confrontation was swift and brutal. Words turned to fists, and the world around them turned into a blur of violence and anger. Sarah felt a searing pain as she was pushed to the ground, and for a moment she thought it was all over. But then she saw Jen standing tall, fighting with a ferocity she had never seen before. The men fled, leaving them bruised and shaken but not broken. They held each other, the warmth of their bodies chasing away the cold fear that had gripped them. "We can't let them win," Jen said, her voice shaking but determined. "We're stronger than this." Sarah nodded, wiping the blood from her lip. "You're right," she murmured. "We're going to keep fighting. For us and for everyone who's ever had to hide who they love." Their love had been tested by fire, but it had only made them stronger. They knew that their journey would never be easy, that there would always be battles to face. But as they stood up, hand in hand, they vowed to always stand together, to conquer the darkness with the light of their love. The story of Sarah and Jen had become more than just a tale of office romance and jealousy. It was a story of courage, of love against all odds, and of the unbreakable bond that could survive even the most heated of battles. And as they walked away from the park, the setting sun casting a warm glow over their bruised faces, they knew that they were ready for whatever the future had in store. They reported the assault to the police, but the men had disappeared into the night, leaving them with only their fear and the echoes of hate. The incident only reinforced their decision to leave the city behind, to find a place where their love could bloom without the constant specter of danger. They packed their bags and moved to a small town where the biggest scandal was the local bakery running out of croissants. They bought a quaint little house with a white picket fence and a garden that seemed to be forever in bloom. They painted the walls with the colors of their hearts and filled the rooms with laughter and music. The whispers had followed them, but here they were quieter, less malicious. The townsfolk watched them with curiosity and a hint of suspicion, but no one dared to speak out against them. They found work at a small office, where their relationship was met with nods and smiles, if not complete understanding. They made friends slowly, carefully, with those who saw them for who they truly were. Two souls intertwined. Life was not perfect, but it was theirs. They faced each day together, their love a bastion against the storms that life threw their way. They danced in the kitchen, their bodies moving in perfect harmony, and kissed under the stars, their love a beacon that shone through the darkest of nights. And as they lay in bed, their hearts beating as one, they knew that no matter what the world threw at them, they would stand firm. The scars from the alley had healed, but they remained a stark reminder of the price they had paid. Yet, with each passing day, they grew stronger, more resilient. They were not just survivors, they were warriors in the fight for love and acceptance. And as they drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, they dreamt of a world where their love was celebrated, not feared. Years passed and their love grew roots deep and strong. They watched the seasons change, the leaves falling and blooming again, a cycle of life that mirrored their own journey. They had faced down the demons of their past and emerged stronger, their love a testament to the human spirit's capacity to overcome. One spring evening, as they sat on the porch swing, watching the sun set over the horizon, Jen took Sarah's hand in hers. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you," she said. Her eyes filled with a love so profound it took Sarah's breath away. Sarah looked into those eyes and knew she had found her home, her heart swelling with a joy that seemed to fill the very air around them. "Forever," she whispered. And in that moment, the whispers of doubt and fear were drowned out by the sweet melody of their hearts beating together. Their engagement was met with a mix of shock and happiness from their friends and family, but in their hearts, they knew it was the right choice. They were not just two people in love. They were a symbol of hope for all those who had ever been forced to hide. The wedding was small, intimate, held in their garden, surrounded by the people who truly mattered. Laura was there, her eyes filled with tears of joy and regret, but the love between them had endured. The air was filled with the scent of roses and the sound of laughter, as they promised to cherish and protect each other for all the days to come. As they exchanged their vows, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the gathering. It was as if the world had finally recognized their union, bestowing upon them a blessing of light. They kissed, and in that moment, it was as if all the whispers had been silenced, replaced by the sweet music of their hearts. Their story had been one of passion and pain, of love and loss, but it was also a story of triumph. For in the end, it was not the whispers that had defined them, but the strength of their love that had carried them through. And as they danced under the stars, surrounded by the warmth of their loved ones, they knew that together, they could conquer anything. Their journey was not over, but they had found their sanctuary, a place where their love could flourish without the weight of judgment. And as they looked into each other's eyes, their future stretched out before them like an uncharted map, filled with promise and adventure. The months leading up to the wedding were a blur of planning and preparation. They faced challenges, from finding the perfect dress to dealing with the occasional unsupportive relative. But through it all, their bond only grew stronger. Each challenge was met with a shared smile, a knowing look, and a quiet whisper of "we can do this." On the day of the wedding, the sun shone down on them, casting a golden hue over the garden that was now theirs. Laura stood by their side, her eyes gleaming with pride as she handed Jen the bouquet. The vows they exchanged were simple but filled with a depth of meaning that resonated through the air. As they kissed, the crowd erupted into applause, the sound echoing through the town like a declaration of their love. And in that moment, the whispers of the past were silenced by the roar of their present, a testament to the power of love to conquer all. The reception was a celebration of their love, a gathering of friends and family who had stood by them through the darkest of days. The dance floor was alive with laughter and music, a stark contrast to the alley where they had once faced hate and fear. But now, as they swayed in each other's arms, their hearts beating in time with the rhythm, they knew that they had overcome. Their love story was no longer just a secret whispered in the shadows. It was a tale of hope and resilience, spoken aloud and celebrated by all. And as they danced, surrounded by the warmth of acceptance and joy, Sarah and Jen knew that together, they could conquer any storm that life threw their way. Their life was not without its challenges, but they faced each one as a team, their love a beacon that guided them through the darkest of nights. The whispers of their past had become a distant memory, replaced by the sweet symphony of their future together. In the quiet moments as they sat in the porch swing, watching the stars twinkle above, they would hold hands, their hearts forever intertwined. They had found their happy ending, not in the grand gestures of a romance novel, but in the everyday moments of a love that had grown from the ashes of doubt and despair. Their story was one of courage and defiance, a testament to the human spirit's capacity for love and growth. And as they watched the stars, their hearts full, they knew that no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, hand in hand, whispering sweet nothings that had become everything. But life had a way of throwing curveballs, and their peaceful existence was soon shattered by an unexpected knock on the door. Laura, her eyes wide with fear, stood before them, her hand shaking as she clutched a newspaper. "You have to see this," she choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. The headline screamed at them from the page. The secret love affair that led to tragedy. The article dug up the past, spinning a sordid tale of jealousy and betrayal that painted them as villains in Mark's death. The whispers had turned into a shout, echoing through the town they had once thought was their refuge. Jen's eyes scanned the words, her heart racing. "How did they find out?" she murmured, her voice barely audible. Sarah took the paper from her trembling hand, her eyes cold and determined. "We're not going to let this ruin us," she said firmly. "We're going to fight." The days that followed were a whirlwind of accusations and stolen glances. The townspeople they had come to know and trust now saw them through a veil of suspicion and fear. But Sarah and Jen stood firm, their love a bastion against the storm of gossip and judgment. They faced the whispers with heads held high, refusing to let the shadows of the past define them. They attended town meetings, held hands in the local coffee shop, and continued to live their lives with an openness that defied the whispers that sought to tear them apart. But the whispers grew louder, the glances more hateful. And one night, as they walked home from dinner, they found their house vandalized, the words "Dykes go home" spray-painted across their fence. The fear was back, a sour taste in their mouths that no kiss could wash away. They called the police, but the officers' sympathetic nods did little to ease their fear. The whispers had turned to screams, a cacophony of hate that threatened to drown out the sweetness of their love. But amidst the chaos, they found strength in each other, their bond a lifeline in the storm. They decided to host a town hall meeting, to tell their story, to show the faces behind the whispers. And as they stood before their neighbors, their voices shaking but resolute, they shared their journey of love and loss. The room was silent as they spoke, the air thick with unspoken truths. And when they were done, the whispers had quieted, replaced by the murmur of understanding. Some nodded in support, others looked away, but the hate had been confronted, and in its place there was room for something new. The following weeks were a delicate dance of rebuilding trust and forging alliances. Laura stood by them, her own guilt a silent sentinel, helping to mend the fences they had worked so hard to build. The town didn't change overnight, but the cracks in the armor of prejudice had begun to show. Their love had become more than just a private affair. It was a declaration of hope, a challenge to the status quo. And as they held each other close, their hearts pounding in unison, they knew that the whispers of their past would not dictate their future. The town hall meeting had been a turning point. Some of the townsfolk had come to understand their love, others remained skeptical, but the air had shifted. The whispers had turned into a conversation, one that was messy and uncomfortable, but a conversation nonetheless. Sarah and Jen started attending community events, volunteering, and getting involved in local politics. They knew that the only way to truly conquer the whispers was to become a part of the fabric of the town, to show that their love was not a threat, but a testament to the human spirit's endurance. As the seasons changed, so too did the hearts of the people around them. The vandalism stopped, the stares grew less hostile, and the whispers grew softer. They received invitations to barbecues and baby showers, were included in neighborhood watch meetings, and even found an ally in the local pastor, who preached a message of love and acceptance from the pulpit. One evening, as they sat on the porch swing, the air filled with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine, they watched the stars and felt a sense of peace that had been a long time coming. The whispers had become a gentle breeze, carrying with it the whispers of acceptance and support. Their love story had become a beacon in the small town, a reminder that love could conquer fear. And as they held each other, their hearts swelling with gratitude and hope, they knew that the whispers had not destroyed them. Instead, they had shaped them into something stronger, something that could stand against the storms of intolerance. Their marriage grew deeper, the whispers now just a faint echo of what once was. They found joy in the little things: the sound of the wind chimes on their porch, the warmth of the sun on their skin, the quiet moments of shared laughter. Their house was a sanctuary, a place where love was not just spoken but lived. And as they watched their garden grow, their hearts full of hope, they knew that the whispers had served a purpose. They had watered the seeds of change, and now they were beginning to bloom. The whispers had turned into a melody, a sweet and persistent reminder of the journey they had traveled together. They had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, their love a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome. And as they swung gently on the porch, their future stretching out before them like a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of their love, they knew that the whispers would always be there, a part of their story. But now they were the ones writing the narrative, and it was one of love, courage, and the indomitable will to live a life that whispered back, "Here we are. This is who we are. And we are not afraid."